Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, once again from Exile, but I did watch the Spanish Grand Prix, which has only just finished, and it was an interesting race with a pretty amazing end. The last 6 laps were pretty crazy, lots to talk about from just those 6 laps, but it was an interesting race leading up to that point. What I want to talk about first, though, is Nico Hülkenberg. What a drive in the Sauber. 5th place with Verstappen's penalty. Passed Hamilton on track, on similar tyres. I don't know where Hamilton's pace went after the safety car, but Hülkenberg really on fire in this one. The Sauber seems to be working. They brought an update to their floor, and Hülkenberg just nailed it this weekend. And 5th place for Sauber. They haven't done that since Valtteri Bottas at Imola in 2022. It's been a long time. It's only their 3rd points finish since Alfa Romeo left, and Hülkenberg's got 2 of those. So his move to Sauber is looking ever more genius. And with, I don't think they're going to get penalties, but if Leclerc was to, say, get a 5-second penalty for bumping into Verstappen on the straight, and then Russell get a 5-second penalty for bumping Verstappen at the first corner, Hülkenberg could get a podium, or he would if there's any chance of those two getting penalties, but I don't think they will. There's not really enough in it in either of those instances to do it. But if some steward out there is looking on thinking, let's give Hülkenberg his first podium, I actually have no problem with that. I don't like races settled by penalties, but in this case, let's get Hülkenberg on that podium. As for the race itself, this was a pretty important weekend, I feel, for Oscar Piastri, who really showed he has something over his teammate. He may be younger, he may have less years in Formula 1 behind him, but Oscar Piastri is really driving like an experienced pro who's been there for like 10 years. And it was a great pole position. He controlled this race. Norris got close a couple of times, but not anywhere near close enough to challenge for the race win. This was all about Piastri. He strengthened his lead in the championship after this 3-race period. He's going to have a couple of weeks off now until Canada. And I think this will be a big psychological blow to Lando Norris. But it's all to play for between the McLarens. There's only 10 points between them. We've still got plenty of the season left to go. But both of them are driving very, very well. They don't make many mistakes. And in qualifying, they're quick. In races, they're quick. The McLaren's really top of the class at the moment. So I don't see anyone catching them, especially in the constructors. I think Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull have all had their issues to various extents, to the point where Red Bull are still kind of running one car. Mercedes are clearly having issues with reliability for some reason with Antonelli's car, and Ferrari just aren't quite there. Their qualifying pace seems to be a little bit off, and even though they look quick in the races, or Leclerc does at least, they're still only really scoring best of the rest points behind the McLarens. They're not challenging McLaren. So in the constructors, McLaren at the moment have a massive lead, and obviously Piastri and Norris have finished on either winning the race or on the podium at pretty much every round this year, bar a couple. So that's why. And Verstappen, it was a brilliant drive in this Spanish Grand Prix. It was brave going for a 3-stop strategy. It didn't really look like it was going to pay off anyway, but once that safety car happened, they put him on the wrong tyre, and he lost places. It was a mistake. They should have just kept him out, see if he could take track position, see if he could hold off the McLarens. I think that would have been the best way to put pressure on them. He's never going to put pressure with the hard tyre. So I think the tyre choice after the safety car blew his race. The madness that followed, honestly, I don't really understand what went on. The wiggle as he came out of the last corner behind the safety car that allowed Leclerc alongside. I think Leclerc was just behind as he reached the line, because I'm not sure what the rules are. I think they're not allowed to be side by side. So I think Leclerc was okay when they crossed the line. But Verstappen didn't change lines, and Leclerc did drive into him. Not entirely sure why that was necessary. I'm guessing it was just a mistake and he just didn't realise how little room he had. Verstappen didn't do anything wrong. He didn't move. But that little bit of contact, it wasn't going to save Verstappen anyway, because Verstappen had already lost momentum at the start of the straight. So it was a messy one. George Russell, I don't think he was really quite alongside him when he overtook. And I think Red Bull would have been okay to let Verstappen keep the position. I don't know, I'd have to see that again. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like because Russell hit his back wheel and sent him to the outskirts of the corner, I think Red Bull could have risked a penalty on that one. And obviously, they probably should have. But they decided to give the place back. I don't think it was deliberate from Verstappen before we start. I think that he was trying to be clever, let Russell through, and then straight away get alongside him on the inside, maybe take him down to the next corner. And I think being on the hard tyre, maybe he's just understeered into him. But without seeing the onboard and seeing how much Verstappen was turning the wheel, if he's not turning, then you're talking about a Michael Schumacher penalty from '97. Because deliberately driving into someone, it's dangerous and reckless and childish, and you can't be childish in £1 million cars. It would be a very silly mistake from a 4-time champion. So if we see the onboard, it really depends on how much his hands were turning to the left, and if the car was understeering or if he was just not in control. If he's not in control, it's still a penalty. Russell made it to the end, so he hasn't lost anything. He's still got 4th. It was a very good drive from Russell, but Verstappen, that 10-second penalty that drops him to 10th, that is really damaging for his championship. And with that, I think he's now 60, 70 points behind. So you're talking 3 races at least to catch up again. And with McLaren in the form they're in, that's not going to be easy. So that does dampen the title challenge at the front. It was nice seeing 3 drivers very, very close to each other. We're now down to 2. It's going to be a long road for Verstappen to get back into it. But it's going to be interesting seeing a new champion crowned. Obviously, we've only had 2 champions since, was it 2016? We had Hamilton from 2017 to 2020 and Verstappen from 2021 to 2024. So since Nico Rosberg retired, there's only been 2 drivers who are champions. And so getting a 3rd would be nice. As for everyone else on the grid, behind the McLarens, as I said, Leclerc, I think he did a very good job. Deserved the podium, but I think without the safety car, he wouldn't have done it. He definitely did not have the pace. And other than bumping Verstappen slightly, it was pretty much a flawless race from him. Russell behind, again, a very good drive. Not sure what happened to his teammate. It's another mechanical failure for him. Antonelli has been driving very, very well. He doesn't deserve to retire from races because of mechanical failure. He deserves to stick in it. And he would have been in the points if not for this. And I think that's going to be very disappointing for the Italian. He's now gone 3 races without scoring points. It's difficult because Mercedes are quite high up in the constructors. I really feel like they're behind McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull. But they have been ahead of Ferrari and Red Bull in constructors. So I do feel like Mercedes are punching above their weight, mostly because of Russell. And this was another good result from Russell. So I'd be worried about their mechanical issues if it's something that could affect both cars later in the season. They don't really dropping too many points. But then if they can sort all this out, keep both cars running throughout the race, I think they're in a good position for the year. They've got 2 very good drivers. Russell is really in the form of his life, despite not having the car underneath him. Antonelli, it's his first year, he's learning, but he has been there and scoring points. He's done well. Hulkenberg behind him, behind Russell. Amazing job, as I've said. Honestly, 10 out of 10. You do not expect anything like that from a stakes hour. If they get in the points, they're doing a fantastic job. To be up in 5th place, and on merit as well, because he did pass Hamilton on the track. That is an incredible job. Hamilton in 6th, I think he should be disappointed. It was a half-decent qualifying session. He was beaten by quicker cars. In the race, he didn't really do anything wrong, but he didn't have the pace of Leclerc or any of the cars in front of him. He was going to struggle to finish top 5, even if he could get past Verstappen before. He only got 6th because he got a penalty beforehand. So I think it's been a difficult weekend. It could have been a 7th place. And behind a Stake Sauber, a Ferrari-powered customer car, I think that would be a difficult one to take. And I think Hamilton's going to have to do some work over the next week. I've got a feeling he's going to be strong in Canada. I think that's a track that suits him. We have the British Grand Prix coming up soon as well. So there are races where classically Hamilton has been very impressive. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do in a Ferrari at those races. I reckon first podium at Canada and possibly going for a win at Silverstone. But it could go the other way and he'll just be the same 5th, 6th or 7th. It's looking like it's going to be a hard job getting a podium for Hamilton. I think he's going to need other things to happen. But the qualifying pace isn't too far off. I don't think it's going to take too much to get him fighting for 4th or 5th place. But it just doesn't seem to work over the complete race distance. And Leclerc just looks quicker. So they got pace to unlock for Hamilton. And it's going to be... I think there's some races coming up that suit him where he's going to be stronger. That's going to be a good look at how much he can match up to Leclerc. Behind him, Hadjar, again, fantastic performance from the Frenchman. Really one of the breakout stars of this year. I think out of all the rookies, with exception of maybe Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Hadjar has looked the best. Pierre Gasly in 8th, a pretty good drive from him. Fernando Alonso in 9th, homeboy. It was an interesting race for Alonso. I think this could have been a better result. I think he could have been challenging Hadjar for 7th. He obviously ran wide into the gravel. He also got stuck in the midfield for a very long time. I think Aston Martin are in a difficult place, with Lance Stroll pulling out because of chronic wrist issues. So, apparently issues he's had since his accident in 2020... Was it before the 2023 season or before the 2024 season? I can't remember. It's a long time. If that is going to be a continuing problem and he's going to have to pull out of races, I cannot fathom a reason to keep Lance Stroll in that seat. He has to go. And Aston Martin have plenty of options in that regard. If he comes, I can't imagine him missing Canada, being that it's his home Grand Prix. But if this is going to be an issue going forward, maybe it's time to say to him, let's make this your last Grand Prix. Your home Grand Prix, definitely your final one until your wrist issues are sorted permanently. And then we'll replace you with either Valtteri Bottas, Felipe Drugovich, or Jack Crawford. And we'll go from there. It's selfish that he's been driving in pain, even if he has struggled, because it may have been a better choice to step aside, and I know that would have been difficult, and the fact that he's carried on in pain, apparently, it's, you know, fine, but you haven't exactly had a stellar career. You are always the subject of ridicule, and it might have been a good idea to step aside and let someone else have a go. But here we are, Lance Stroll on the sidelines. I reckon he'll be back for Canada. I reckon he won't give up that seat. I reckon as soon as he gives up that seat, he's in trouble, because it just comes a point that if someone gets that seat and does well, the only thing keeping you there is your dad running the company, and even he's got to look at it like an investment and say, well, I guess it's time for someone else. So I think Stroll has to be in the car in Canada. His home Grand Prix, but also really for any chance to save his career and extend it any longer, he can't miss a race. Not again. Behind Alonso, we had Verstappen just barely in the points. Lawson just missed out, but it was a good race. A busy one from him, but he was just on the outside of the points. Bortoleto did a fantastic job in his Stake Sauber. He, along with the Doohan Colapinto collective, are now the only ones not to score points. But I think we've seen enough from Bortoleto that, given it's his rookie season in a backmarker car, he's shown enough to prove he deserves to be there. There's been times in qualifying where he's been up with Hülkenberg or even ahead of him. He's been doing well in races. He just hasn't turned it into points yet, and he's got time to do that. I think Bortoleto is a great driver, and hopefully he gets a car that can perform further up the field, because I think it's going to be interesting to see how far he can go in his career. Yuki Tsunoda, another disappointing race, but given how disappointing qualifying was, that wasn't really surprising. It's not really working at the moment, but I don't think they're going to change him. Carlos Sainz, first time out of the points in Spain. Disappointing for him. Colapinto, out of the points as well. It's not been great since he's come back. Ocon, it was kind of a nothing race for him and Behrman behind. And of course, Albon didn't finish. Andrea Kimi Antonelli didn't finish. And Lance Stroll didn't start. So that was the Spanish Grand Prix of 2025. It wasn't boring. It was interesting with the strategies, with the 2 stops and the 3 stops, seeing where they're all going to end up. But before the safety car, it did look like we were just going to get a pretty poor procession to the flag. But there was entertainment in the midfield this time round. We did see some battling. Fernando Alonso pulled off some great overtakes in turn 3, round the outside. There was a tight midfield where we saw battles and some pretty dodgy driving. I think driving standards are definitely something that's going to come up in the next couple of weeks. But it was entertaining enough. Compared to Monaco, it was night and day. This was way, way better. But this was not a classic Grand Prix for the ages. It was just an interesting Grand Prix. Probably one of the better ones this year, but that's not really saying much. The last 6 laps were pretty mental. It's the only real time the front of the field had a big mix-up. Only because Verstappen had the wrong tyres. I think a mistake from Red Bull. They should have just kept him out. We won't know how that would have worked out. As it has, it's worked out as it's cost Verstappen quite a lot of points. Another dominant win for McLaren. They look almost unstoppable, but we have a 2-week break till Canada. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone can do anything to get themselves in the fight at the front of the field. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy the Spanish Grand Prix of 2025? What did you think of Verstappen and Russell making contact? What did you think of McLaren's performance? What about Hulkenberg? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll be back with more, hopefully very soon. Have a good one.